Welcome to another episode from our Growth Tips series. A place to grow you, grow your business, and live the life you want to live. Today we're looking at how you can find your ideal customer. In this training, we're going to look at how you can find the ideal customer for your business. A strategy that's guaranteed to give you more time, it will make you more money, and it will give you more choice to choose who you work with. After going through this training, you'll be able to choose who you want to work with. With this training, you'll be able to attract customers to you like a magnet. More customers than you can even comprehend right now. Not only that, but those customers will pay more. In fact, they'll be happy to pay a premium for whatever it is that you're going to do for them. But best of all, they'll tell all their friends about you, and so the cycle will start again. So you'll have lots and lots of customers who rave about you and what your business does for them. They'll be so happy with you, they'll even pay you a premium, and they'll pay the bills on time as well. In fact, they'll probably be chasing you for an invoice. So if you've not got your invoicing set up, you're going to need that very soon. But don't worry, we'll cover that in another training session later on. So with all these customers coming to you, you've got the ability to choose who you want to work with. Being paid more for doing the same type of work, not having to work as many hours. This essentially means freedom. Freedom of choice to do what you want, when you want, and how you want. Now, I don't know what freedom looks like to you, but for me, freedom looks like nice holidays, a nice house, a nice car, a villa in Spain perhaps, and lots of expensive hobbies. So let's look at the goals or objectives of doing this learning session. You'll be able to identify the ideal customer for your business. You'll say the right things to that ideal customer through your marketing messages. And then you'll put everything on autopilot. So you don't have to go out there hunting for new customers anymore. You get a consistent and predictable stream of customers coming to you whenever you want them. Attract the customer, earn lots of money, and live happily ever after. Right, let's get into this. What does your ideal customer look like? This video will help you identify, describe, and focus on those customers that are perfect for your business. The ideal customer is someone who values what you offer, but they also see working with you as a business partnership rather than a business transaction. They have roles and responsibilities, needs and goals, but so do you. And by building a relationship with each ideal customer, it means you both help each other achieve your objectives. Customers that don't value what you offer, they don't pay on time, and they generally become a pain to deal with. You can end up spending more time managing them than doing anything else. With an ideal target customer, you get control of that message. You get to control the audience, and you get to control the exposure of that message to the audience. Now, what would it mean to you if you could have as many customers as you want? What type of life does that create for you? Maybe you've been thinking of getting a new car or a new van this year, but you've been delaying it. Maybe you're not quite certain how things are going to be in the next, say, 6 months from now. So I wonder, how would this system change all of that for you? A system that if you decide you want more customers next week, you just switch the system on, just like turning on a tap. And every time you do that, you get more of what you want out of the other end. Whether that's a new van, a new car, or even a new house. So to determine how we can identify your ideal customer, let's just step back for a minute and see how we normally get a customer. If we take your average customer today, They were once a prospect or a prospective customer. Now, up to this point, these have probably just been random customers that you either chased, or if you're lucky, they came to you. Now, note that we said they randomly showed up as a prospect. They might have came to you following an advert that you'd placed somewhere, but they were still random. It could have been more. It could have been anyone, unless of course you'd been hounding a particular client to give you work for the last 3 years, in which case it was targeted, but it was also a long road to get them in the bag. And there was always a chance that they'd never become a client. Now, before they became a prospect, or before you started hounding them, they were a lead. Again, that was probably a pretty random process as well. So by using this system, it means you can remove that randomness from the process. By removing the randomness from the process, it means that over time, it becomes a predictable system. We first identify your ideal customer, but in order to have those ideal customers chasing us, we have to make sure that they're ideal prospects first. And where do ideal prospects come from? We find them from ideal leads. Now, all this sounds pretty simple and basic, but that's the point. It is simple and it is basic. But by breaking down why we have the results today into those steps, then it means we can effectively re-engineer the process to get what we want. So let's put this into a real life example. Let's say you provide maintenance to fire alarm systems. Let's say you've just won a new customer, and this customer fits into the micro niche that you've set. It's like a fishing net. The fish that aren't right swim straight through the holes in the net. So this new customer, let's say it's a 70-bedroom hotel. Now, to get that ideal customer, we had a pool of hotels that all fitted perfectly into our net. They were all hotels, and they were between, say, 30 to 150 bedrooms each. Now, to get them, we started off very broad. We were looking at all hotels within a 25-mile radius. So just to point out at this stage, our ideal customer in this example is hotels between 30 to 150 bedrooms within a 25-mile radius of our office. Of course, after we'd identified them, we were speaking to them through our marketing messages, and what we communicated to them through our advertising, in our social media posts, in our branding, etc., so that we automatically got rid of the ones that didn't fit that ideal customer profile. But for the ones that did fit, they understand our message so clearly that it made us look like we were talking directly to them about their hotel. By knowing what the ideal customer looks like, you don't have to go out there knocking on doors. You don't have to go out cold calling or following up cold leads, sending out emails that never get opened. These ideal customers are attracted to you and what you offer. They come searching for you like a magnet. And by working through this system over time, you can predictably grow your business every month, knowing exactly how many new leads, new prospects, and new customers you're going to get coming through the door. And that means you can predictably know how many staff you'll need, but also when you can go on holiday, get a new van, take the lease on new premises, buy a new house, whatever it is that you want to do. So using the spreadsheet, let's look at your existing customers to see if any of those fit into your ideal customer profile. By the way, you can get this spreadsheet and the workbooks that take you through this process by clicking on the link at the end. It's completely free. Just go to the website and download them both there. I've put a few examples into the spreadsheet. These aren't real life. They're just random numbers. So don't take too much notice of the actual values. Also, a small disclaimer too. The client names, as far as I know, they aren't real companies. They aren't meant to be real companies, so don't take any notice of those either. This is purely to show you how this spreadsheet works. So we want to start filling in the blanks. Enter all of your customers and contract details in the appropriate columns. If you have a number of service offerings, it would be a good idea to use as separate worksheets for each one, as these should really be looked at individually. For example, if you're an electrical contractor that also does, say, fire alarm maintenance, as well as data cabling, each 3 service offerings should be treated, as far as this is concerned, as almost like separate businesses. Likewise, let's say you're a contractor that does new installation work, but you also do maintenance as well. Both of these offerings probably have or should have different charge out rates, especially if you have different people working on each. Now, ideally, you'll want to break this down by contract. This is really a really good tool for analyzing how profitable a contract is. And as you go through it, if you're good at spreadsheets, you'll probably want to add in a few more columns so that you can measure each even more. So you've written in the client name, the contract details, the service offering, and in the 4th column, this is whether the contract is complete or whether it's ongoing and live. Now, if it's live, you know that the profit figures might change a bit depending on how much costs are added later in the contract. Now, next is the location postcode for the site. We'll look at why we include this in a few minutes. The next 3 columns are how we categorize each contract or customer. This is where we can start to identify similarities between our good and our bad customers. The next box is where you'll write in the problem or need that customer was having, if you know it. For example, let's go back to that earlier example of the 30-bedroom hotel. Their problem was that the existing contractor would take 3 visits to fix a fault. So their need was a contractor who could fix the problem straight away on the first visit. So you'll ideally complete this for each one, or at least for each of your ideal customers as we move forward. Now start to add in contract values. How much it's cost to date if it's still live, and how much you expect it to cost for the remainder of the contract. That should then automatically generate a profit figure. Now, when we're looking at costs, you can either look at cost of delivery, or you can do cost of delivery plus all of your overheads, but just make sure it's consistent for every entry in it. Next, we need to put the total hours into the spreadsheet. If it's a live contract, how much time has been spent so far? One thing that most small businesses don't consider is their own time when it comes to serving a customer. They don't include the cost of their time, and we're talking about the business owner. All the hours that they spend on a particular project, either delivering the project or managing everything in relation to it. If there's one key point to take away from this now, it's that you need to consider your time in all of this. If you don't include your time and costs into each project, how can you measure whether it's profitable, or even how much your actual time is worth? Imagine for just a second you're working on a particular contract that it's only been you working on it, and so you've been monitoring whether it's making any money. Anyway, one day you fall and break your leg. You can no longer work on that contract. So you get someone else to replace you, and they do the work that you were doing. They do the exact same amount of work in the same amount of time, except now your business is losing £5,000 a month. What's happening? Are they stealing from you? Are they not really doing the work they say they're doing? Is it just because you've got an extra wage? No. The reason is because you didn't price a contract as if it was someone else working on it. You thought that you were happy to work for, say, £10 an hour because it was a favour for a friend. Except now you need to pay £18 an hour for someone else's wage to get the job done. And you also need to pay yourself. There's been a few times I've worked with customers and we've done this exercise only to find that they were earning £3 or £4 an hour for the time. And that's because they weren't properly analysing the costs to the contract. Because if they were, they'd have changed the pricing and then been able to pay themselves a decent wage. The other thing that can happen, people start to grow the business from it being just themselves. They start to get enough work to employ maybe 3 or 4 people, but every bit of work was priced at a rate for themselves to do it. That rate might have been a nice wage for them. They were happy, but it was less than what the market rate is to pay an employee. Even if you price it at the market rate, as the business grows further and it gets to 5 or 6 staff, when you need someone permanently in the office, there just isn't the cash in the contracts to pay for that overhead. So either that business will go out of business, or the owner of the business decides it's not for them and they scale it back to just being themselves working in the business. We'll look at how to properly calculate your charge out rates in a later training session. The purpose of this process is to ultimately remove yourself from the business. You might think, oh, I like my job, I don't want to leave what I'm doing, but that's not my point. Tell me this. Let's consider you have an accident tomorrow. You end up in a coma for 3 months. How will your business continue for the time it takes to get you back to work? Could your business continue running without you for the next 12 months? Right now, if you honestly said you're not going anywhere near it from 5 p.m. tonight, even if you have staff in the business, you give them no warnings, you just don't turn up for the next 12 months, what happens? Okay, so if you can honestly say things will continue, you'll continue to get an income, and the business will continue to grow, then fine. If not, this process is here to help you do that. So let's change our thought process. We're no longer John Smith. We're now employee number 174. Employee number 174 needs to be paid the going rate for his or her time spent on each project. So include your time into that spreadsheet as employee number 174. If the going rate for that type of work is £15 per hour, regardless of what you pay yourself, make sure you calculate every hour of your time on that project at £15 per hour. Likewise, for other tasks that might be more, let's say £30 per hour, do the same with that. Whatever it costs to replace you in each of those roles, that's the cost you're going to enter in the spreadsheet from now on. When you have enough data, you could reorganize the spreadsheet in order of profitability. If it's possible, calculate the total profit divided by the total hours. Then sort the spreadsheet by the highest to lowest profit, either by percentage or profit per hour. Let's look at the results. Are there any types of client that are totally unprofitable? If you offer more than one type of product or service, you should do this exercise for each. Let's come back to our earlier example of the electrical contractor that provided fire alarm maintenance and data cabling services. You might find that data cabling services have twice as much profit than the other two services. Likewise, you might do electrical safety inspections and find that you don't make any money at all. The more that you can categorize and measure, the easier this process is. And when you've done the initial work of setting it up like this, it becomes much easier to manage going forward. Every time you add a service or perhaps a new product, you can see straight away whether that new service is profitable, rather than getting to the end of the year and the accountant tells you that you've lost, say, 30,000 since adding that extra service. By doing this, you're partway there to identifying your ideal customer. Look at all those customers. Now, some of these unprofitable customers may actually be your ideal customer, but you price low just to get them as a customer. So consider first of all how you feel about them. Are there any similarities in type or category between them and the customers at the top of the list, those without lots of profit? Next, is there any way of increasing your prices with these customers to bring them more in line with the ideal customers at the top of that list? They may have not been profitable previously, but that doesn't mean you can't make it profitable for the next contract. If they're your ideal customer, the price shouldn't matter. This process is really assuming that every contract has been priced on the market rate for employing someone, and all hours have been included properly. So you may need to look at each contract in that way before you complete this exercise, so that you can make a fair assessment. Next, we need to divide the list again. From the list, particularly from the profitable end of the list, how many are making referrals to your business? If you can identify which ones, it means these are the happy customers. And happy customers go a long way toward making up your ideal customer profile. It can obviously be difficult to measure referring customers unless they tell you directly. Some customers will just refer their friends to you without letting you know. But we'll look at how you can properly track referrals later. So from this very narrow group of profitable and referring customers, start to look at the physical characteristics of each one. Are there similarities between them? This process has probably taken you a few weeks to complete so far, but by now you should be seeing some similarities. To use our example, let's go back to the 70-bedroom hotel we looked at a few minutes ago. Now, out of that shortlist, the company probably had residential buildings, student flats, schools, offices, bed and breakfasts, and basically anywhere that had anything from a single smoke detector through to airports with thousands of detectors. But by going through this process, they'd have noticed which were most profitable and identified a pattern of similarity for those profitable contracts. The next step is to do some research into how those ideal customers behave. What motivations do they have? Why did they choose to work with you in the first place? What factors influence their buying decision? What is their buying process? Perhaps they go to trade shows. Perhaps this type of ideal customer get involved with charities or local events. If they do, one option to attract this type of customer could be to sponsor the local events or get involved as a volunteer with, say, a few charities. An example of motivations to buy could also be perhaps they prefer to buy from local businesses, or perhaps they buy from larger businesses because they can get everything from a single provider. By understanding this about your ideal customer, it turns you from being a hunter to being an attractor. Imagine if you could get unlimited customers, all happy to pay you whatever you wanted to charge, but never having to go out and find them, never having to make cold calls or send emails out to people, always trying to hunt the next customer. Using this process, you can do exactly that. And by following the process through, it means you can remove yourself from the business as much or as little as you like. It will mean you can take that dream holiday and live the life you want because you've got an abundance of customers. that love you, and a business that can grow without you. So how would you spot your ideal customer? What words or images help you to portray that picture of your ideal customer? How would you describe them to me right now? There may be a number of ideal customer types or segments, and that's okay. You can give each one a name or a title. Sally or Dave, for example. Imagine if you had an image of each ideal customer pinned up on your wall. You might even have the head of one of your current customers stuck on the wall. Now, for every marketing decision you make, you're going to ask the question, would this appeal to Sally? Would this appeal to Dave? When you start doing this, you'll subconsciously start building your business around being the perfect fit for your ideal customer needs. You'll no longer just accept a customer because they approach you. You might even have an informal interview process to identify whether they fit your ideal customer profile. It's at this point your ideal customer values you even more, and you move away from being a price-driven commodity to being a premium in your ideal customer's mind. If you can, look at what your ideal customers are doing socially. We joke about people posting pictures of their dinner on Facebook or Instagram, but let's say you're a food-related business, or perhaps nutrition or fitness. You have the perfect data about the type of food they eat, perhaps their exercise routine, or all of which you can use it to market to them. If you notice they post pictures of themselves cycling, perhaps you might sell cycle shorts or a new bike to them from knowing this information. Even better, imagine your ideal customer is heavily into cycling and competes in races every weekend. Now, what if you could sponsor some local riders that meant getting your business right in front of your ideal customer every weekend? And we need to find what the problem is. Coming back to what we said earlier about the motivations to choosing you. What is their need or problem? Because without one, it's probably nothing more than noise or a distraction to them. What are they attempting to solve when they buy your products or services? A problem may just be fixing an issue with their computer, but it could equally be the desire to impress their friends with the latest smart home technology. It isn't about understanding what they're buying, it's more about understanding what you're really selling. It's the customer who determines what you're selling. So what do you really sell? Is it peace of mind? Status? Is it pain relief? Security? Discover what that is and then state it clearly in your marketing. Where are your customers? Plot on a map where your customers are. If they have multiple locations, plot their head office and then the sites that you work with. Is there any correlation between this and your profitable customers? For some businesses, it might become unprofitable if you're traveling more than 30 miles from your office or home location. Of course, there is two options when you identify this type of correlation. You can either drop those unprofitable customers, or like we mentioned previously, you can make them profitable by looking at ways to make them profitable. In this case example, that might include setting up a second trading base, say 50 miles away. Using the example on the screen, you might want to color code each location according to profitability. By doing this, you can identify this type of problem easily. If your service is relatively virtual, it probably won't make much difference. but you could still use the process for your marketing. If you discover that your ideal customers are concentrated around Manchester city centre, your marketing could then be based around the city centre too. How do your customers buy from you? What process do they go through? Understand the buying decision process. Map this process for each of your ideal customer segments. Do you have to be on their approved list of suppliers? Do they buy through a Google search? Do they buy from referral or word of mouth? How did you reach your ideal customers previously? By doing this, it means you can properly set up the systems that will attract more of them to you automatically. How are you going to reach this customer segment? Was it just pure chance that they contacted you? Is it realistic that you can expect to win new customers the same in the future? Perhaps your ideal customer has been a rock star who by chance had a burst pipe on a Sunday night, phoned everyone they found on Google, and on his 67th attempt managed to get through to you. They were happy to pay you. They even had you in to replace the bathroom suite and fit an outside tap a few months later. They even told their friends and neighbours about your fast response. But unless you live in Hollywood, there's a strong chance it might be difficult to get lots of new ideal customers just like this one. So ask yourself, what channels are there to reach this customer segment? Are there trade bodies, associations, publications? Can you buy mailing lists? Is there opportunity to network with them? Add these details to your spreadsheet. It will help build up a clearer picture. Ask yourself, does this customer segment value what you're offering? Are they happy to pay a premium for it? Look around at companies that appear to be thriving in the customer segment. How are they doing? So now you have all that you need to know about your ideal customer segments. But is it a viable market? Ask yourself these questions. Number one, is the market large enough to support the growth ambitions for your business? Number two, can I easily promote my business to the decision makers in the market? Number three, does the market value what I offer for them to pay a premium for it? When you're analysing your spreadsheet, you'll notice that 80% of your profits come from 20% of your customers. We'll look at how to calculate that in a later training, but bear in mind that if you know the top 20% of customers, these will most likely be the majority of your ideal customer profile. It means you can generate 5 times the amount of profit by dropping the other 80% and getting more of those ideal customers. Thinking about that rule, you can either want the top 20% of customers based on total profit, or what's better is those top 20% of customers based on what you earn per hour from them. Because if you can make more hours available to them, you ultimately make more money for your time. Now you have to think very focused and targeted toward a very small niche audience. By focusing in this way, you can develop products or services tailored specifically to their needs, and your marketing efforts will speak directly to that niche. You will normally find that by doing this, there'll be much less direct competition. Remember, there are lots of people doing what you do. but they have a very generalized mass market approach. Their offerings are generalized and their marketing has no impact whatsoever. In fact, it's mostly just relevant to your ideal customer. Over time, you'll add more customer segments, each with their own service offerings, perhaps even as different brands to the business. The last thing we need to do is write an ideal customer profile for each niche. We'll use a basic template for this. First of all, the physical description. For example, a hotel business with more than 30 bedrooms located within 25 miles of M11 postcode with a credit risk profile of 60 to 100. Second, what they want. For example, a reliable service provider who can attend call-outs within 45 minutes and fix the problem on the first visit with no follow-up visit needed. Next, their problem. For example, they currently have a service provider whom takes 3 visits on average to fix each fault. Fourth, how they buy. For example, the head buyer does a Google search of local businesses and invites them to provide a tender for the services. And lastly, the best way to communicate. So, as an example, as Google is the first point of reference, it will be best to ensure a Google search engine ranking is high, but also Google local search and Google sponsored search for the local area. Now, your prospective customers are now almost auditioning to become a new customer. If they don't meet the criteria, they don't get what they want from you. The next job is to expand your database, filling it with your ideal customers and slowly removing the rest. That's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you've got some value from this. You can download the workbook by clicking the link below. If you think others would get some value from this, please invite them to join the various social media groups and pages. As a bit of fun after you complete the workbook, why not post what your ideal customer is in our social media groups or on our pages? And that's it. Until next time, thanks for watching and I look forward to seeing you next time.